Perfect. Okay, perfect. Great. Thank you so much, everyone, for your patience in joining us today while we kick it off with our celebration for Hispanic Heritage Month. And, this will be the first of it where we're doing our advisory board spotlight series. So we'll be doing it at least with a few of our advisory board members on our Latin American Heritage Program. So to get it started, thanks so much, Dr. Graham. Could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, for sure. My name is Robert Graham. I am a physician, hold a master's in public health, and as you mentioned earlier, I am also a chef, and I'm really proud to be working with Oldways in multiple capacities, and I'm looking forward to our discussion today.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And I'm not sure if I've already introduced myself. My name is Sarah. I'm the Heritage Tribe Curriculum Manager. I work with both the Latin American Heritage Program and the African Heritage Program. And just to reaffirm, Dr. Graham is one of our advisory board members for our Latin American Heritage Program. And, that was a really great introduction, but just to add to it, he's a Harvard-trained physician, a researcher. He has his own company that's Fresh Medicine. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about current initiatives that he's working on and about his business. And also in celebration of Hispanic Heritage Month, so maybe talk about a few dishes and things. So to kick it off, we'd love to know what got you interested in getting involved in food and nutrition? Like what ignited that
Yeah,
passion for you?
well, it doesn't take a doctor to realize that most of these chronic diseases that ail us as Americans are related to our food system. And unfortunately, in medical school, we learn little to nothing about nutrition. It's changing and it's moving in that direction to at least appreciate the connection between our food and our health, but it's not taught. And it does take a doctor to be in the hospitals and be rounding on patients that are admitted to the hospital for things that through a food first approach that we do at Fresh Medicine can actually either prevent or halt or regress these diseases that are afflicting our society today. Just a little fact too, but most people don't realize that the number one cause of death and disability of Americans is not tobacco, not sitting, but our food system, our food, what we eat. 67% of our food that we consume is processed foods. If you consume ultra processed foods, you increase your risk of death by about 18%. So to me, it's a no-brainer. And all I'm trying to do is reconnect the dots between our food and our health.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for giving us more insight on that. As far as, you know, bringing that connection together, because there's not a lot of doctors that are also chefs. So I think that's really neat that you brought these two passions together. Can you tell us what got you into becoming a chef also?
Yeah, well, I went to medical school really to help people, right?
Hmm.
Very few things we can cure, right? But we can help a lot. And during my training, in particular, when I was graduating from medical school and entering my residency, our it was just astonishing to be in our hospitals and seeing the type of food that we're feeding our patients. And I realized that the people that are feed us are not doctors, they're not dietitians, although they have an important role in our nutrition science. But the people that feed us are cooks. And I decided after teaching doctors how to cook for about 10 years in a culinary school at the Natural Gourmet Institute with a chef mentor of mine, Chef La Marita, my wife and I, Julie, said, you know what, why don't we take doctors out of our hospitals and bring them into culinary schools to teach them the principles of healthy cooking, which translate to healthy eating. And that sort of gave birth to a movement called Fair Wellness, and then subsequently led to what we do now. We run a company called Fresh Medicine. If you can allow me just a minute just to describe what FRESH is. FRESH is an acronym for what we believe are the 5 ingredients in a recipe to health. Food is number 1, relaxation, exercise, sleep, and happiness. And it's an acronym. Again, food, relaxation, exercise, sleep, and happiness. And we have found through our combined work in both in medicine and in the culinary arts, but also my wife, who's a health coach, trained in integrative nutrition, positive psychology, yoga teacher, aromatherapy. And through her clients and through her work, she realized that if we address those 5 ingredients, again, food, relaxation, exercise, sleep, and happiness, medicine will be of less or no need. And so I think we should just have a fresh approach when we enter this patient encounter. Let's start with those 5 ingredients that are really lifestyle based, and then we can do the medications and the tests. But I think, really have to get back to that root cause of what's causing these diseases. And so why I went to culinary school, because I want to learn how to cook. I wanted to learn how to cook. I wanted to learn how to choose the best ingredients. I want to learn the best technique so I can make my food the most flavorful, most tasty as possible, and at the same time, make it nutritious.
Absolutely. And that makes a lot of sense too, because it's like, when we're talking about nutrition and health, especially when the doctor's bringing that to you, it's how to make it applicable into your current lifestyle to bring those healthy eating behaviors. So having that sort of
Yeah.
background when going into that, it just adds even more to bringing that into real life. And so bringing it back to heritage, as this is Hispanic Heritage Month, could you tell us a little bit about what the term Latin American heritage foods mean to you, and what's a way that you bring your heritage into your practice when talking about food and nutrition?
Yeah, great questions. So I think it's all tied to our culture, and we all have different food cultures. Um, my background is I'm half a Salvadorian and half American. My dad was a farmer from Washington State, rural Washington State. He was born on the prairie. My mother is an immigrant, and she traveled here. I don't know, roughly 65 years ago, to settle and find this new home called America. And with that, they bring their own sort of culture with them. Um, Being born and raised in Jackson Heights in New York City, I had the great fortune of learning, eating, appreciating all the cultural diversity in our food systems, within a very small radius called Jackson Heights. And for me, it really, I talk about it in my TED Talk, by the way. It's all going back to my roots. It's all going back to my roots. What are your roots? What are your food roots? And we should start exploring those, because the modernization of our current food system is this thing that is slowly killing us. And I think if we return back to our roots and appreciate and honor the heritage foods that our parents were raised with, we'd be in a lot better shape than we are today. And for me, it's again honoring, learning, how to cook for my mom. And I do it all the time. I go over the house. She's always cooking something that people love, but I just don't know what the secret ingredient is. And now I know it's love, right? It's what she puts into it. But for me, the things that I love to cook, again, is an expression of my roots, my heritage. And so that's how I consider, um, what I do heritage cooking.
Could you give us an example of one of your favorite dishes that you like to prepare, or something that maybe your mother or your father used to make that just reminds you of home and, heritage?
Yeah, for sure. And if anyone has seen me speak, I not always, but I oftentimes play a quick video of Ratatouille. And
Mhm.
if no one really remembers that movie, it's about a chef that was trying to impress a critic, and a mouse finds itself into the kitchen. And interesting story there. Spoiler alert, by the way. The mouse was raised similarly to the to the chef and made this ratatouille. And as soon as the critic ate it, it transformed him back to his sort of youth. And he gave it a 5-star rating, and the restaurant went on to fame. And for me, that's what rice, the smell of freshly cooked beans are to me.
Mm.
On Saturday morning, my mom used to cook a pot of beans that would eat the whole week, batch cook, right?
Mhm.
And the smell of my mother's beans sort of, the aroma went all the way upstairs to my bedroom, and woke me up. And for me, that's what food is all about, right? It's about returning back to our roots, returning back to the flavors and the moments that really inspire us to be who we are today. The other thing, I just got to be honest with you, is that the national dish of El Salvadorians is called the pupusa. And
Mhm.
basically a corn cake, that's filled with a bunch of things, from cheese to beans to vegetables, to meats. And I've been trying to master this pupusa for 25 years.
Oh.
Slowly getting there, right? And I watch my mom and I see how she does it. But like all great chefs, it's nothing about the recipe. It's all about the feel and the smell and the taste of that flour, the masa in a pupusa. So for me, um, rice and beans, particularly beans, are the thing that bring me back. But the thing I'm always trying to perfect is the pupusa.
Nice. How does she prepare hers? Does she like add any meats in it, or does she focus more on the veggie, or does she make many different variations? Yeah, I mean, we're
Traditionally,
not asking you to give us the recipe or
well,
anything. Of course, that's probably sacred. But it's hard
I'm
to
still
find a good
developing the
mix.
recipe. It's all about recipe testing, so I'm still defining the perfect pupusa. But classically, it's cheese filled,
Mhm.
and so we make it healthier by introducing some cooked vegetables within it. And again, meats are typically found in it as well. But for me, trying to perfect, I often to believe that if you can't cook the basics, you can't cook the extra, right? And so for
Mhm.
me, cooking, making that classic tortilla is the most important part. And then making it into pupusa, and then defining or trying to identify the perfect or practice making the perfect cheese pupusa is the goal. And then just filling it up with other things that are delicious and nutritious.
Yeah, it's really interesting when it comes to family dishes and foods because there's just certain dishes that even to this day I'm gonna have to be around my great grandmother in the kitchen to see how she does it because even her fried cabbage or chitlins or something that sounds like other people do, you go out, it's just the way she prepares it. It's like no other.
Yeah.
And she does it, and if your mother is like my great grandmother or my grandmother or my family, they don't write anything down.
Yep.
So, and they measure with their hearts. So, when it comes to trying to get the actual ingredients for things to reproduce it, you really just have to be there in person and, try to take notes. But I think that's just a beautiful way of passing down tradition and through food because that brings people together.
And it's
So
also
that's
it's
beautiful.
also bittersweet, right? Is because
Hmm.
our times are limited, with
Hmm.
our great grandparents or our parents, right? So you try to optimize and maximize those times, but at the same time, sort of learn a thing or two in the kitchen because
Yeah,
there's always
absolutely.
wisdom being dropped by them, right? And that's it's unfortunate. My wife and I always say that um, I forget the saying, but you're too young to remember these crucial life lessons. And as you get older, you try to be more attuned or more mindful of those life lessons that happen in the kitchen or just hanging out. And so I urge everyone to sort of go back into your family kitchen, wherever it would be, either mother, father, grandfather, grandparent, uncle, friend, whoever it is, and really seize that opportunity to learn those classics, because, as you mentioned, their history is often oral, not written. And so we're trying to listen, create, but also curate those recipes so that they can live on beyond them.
Absolutely. And on that note, um, what's a cooking and nutrition tip that you advise for our listeners today that you like to incorporate in your day-to-day life? So it could be you or your wife, because I know she is fully holistic in food ways and integrating that. So what's something that you recommend, whether it's taking vitamins or, can you give a little
I mean,
insight?
from a food perspective.
From a nutrition,
Okay.
cooking or nutrition perspective, it could be from either or. So, like something, a tip that I'm always giving during cooking demos is when slicing onions, I always keep a strong spice nearby. Therefore, if I feel like my eyes are starting to tear up, I can distract my senses. Or if I have enough time, I'll stick it in the fridge, before the cooking demo because that helps with keeping you from crying when you're dicing
Yeah,
onions.
something also, we just say on onions. One of the things I always say is, and again, I learned it from my mom, is that if you're going to make a lot of onions, usually soaking your onions takes a little bit of the bite off of it from a taste point of view, and also decreases some of the sulfuric acid that sort of is what burns your eyes when you cut it. I think for me, it's try to get in the kitchen at least once a day. And so whatever you do, whatever you make, try to make something for yourself a day because even the worst foods out there, if you make them themselves, they're not going to be as bad as the things that you buy out there. The classic story I always give is fried chicken.
Mm.
Um, you know, Fried chicken can be delicious, but it's really, if you try to make it at home, it's a labor of love. It's a huge mess, and it never really tastes as good. And so, that's one of the things I always tell people: try to get in the kitchen for at least one meal. It doesn't have to be a full meal, prepared meal. It doesn't have to do the fancy knife cuts. But I think we owed it to ourselves to feed ourselves, and I think and we learned in COVID, it became a survival tactic. People that didn't know how to cook had a hard time surviving through COVID. just because restaurants were closed and cooks were busy doing other things. And so regardless of what you make, what you do, what you eat, get in there in the kitchen and challenge yourself to make something each day. And then I would argue, I would also challenge the audience to make something that is from your culture.
Hmm.
And again, it's not going to taste like mom's the first time, but with practice, I almost can guarantee you that in a lifetime you will get there.
So what's your dish for today, getting in the kitchen? What do you plan on making?
Good question. So tonight, I'm known for my salad. So one of the things that we try to incorporate everything every day into our diet is at least 5 servings of fruits and vegetables. And the best way to do that, either soups, shakes,
Hmm.
smoothies, or salads. And so the Graham salad is legendary. It has at least 7 knife cuts in it, and so that's another thing. I love prepping. I love cutting my vegetables according to different knife skills, knife cuts. And the reason why salads often taste better when you go out and eat them is because the different textures of the knife cuts really make a difference when you actually eat them. So make a salad tonight.
Nice. Yeah, it's actually, I remember one time during a staff meeting here at Oldways, we had someone come in and literally teach us different knife cutting techniques. So then when we're offering cooking demos, but also just like for food photography and things on the website, also, if you want to add the Graham salad to the website, we're always accepting more recipes to be featured by our advisory board members.
For sure.
So
Also,
that
make your
door
own
is always
vinaigrette.
open.
The other thing I tell people is a lot of the things that we buy pre-made, like salad dressings, can easily be made at home. And
Hmm.
so that's the other thing is that challenge yourself to make your own salad dressing because, again, you're able to control what you put in. And that's the beauty of cooking, right? Because if you buy something on the shelf, it has to be shelf stable. And
Yeah.
it's usually some sort of process thing that makes it shelf stable. Because real food rots. And the reason why they can last on your shelf is because something's in there to preserve it. And oftentimes it's not the healthiest stuff that you can consume.
Yeah, and that's why you see a difference in fridge sizes when you go over to Europe versus in the States because, a lot of those ingredients have less preservatives. So, you have a smaller fridge because you're filling it up and you're going to the grocery store, you're going to the market a lot more often. So,
Yeah.
but definitely a good tip as far as like your own salad dressings because I remember watching the documentary, I think it was the McDonald's one, where some of the most calories that you saw was in the salad dressing.
Yep.
So
And
that's
if there's
that's a
cheese,
hidden.
and if there's cheese in your salad dressing, it's not a salad dressing. Okay, that's
No.
the other component. One last thing I like to mention
Mhm.
is that invest in your health, right? And for me, I have to give a shout out to dietitians, right? Is that if you're really confused, and unfortunately, when you go to your doctor, they basically tell you what not to eat, and it usually comes down to 3 things that chefs optimize all the time: don't eat salt, don't eat
Mhm.
sugar, and don't eat fat. But that's exactly what chefs try to optimize when you go out to dinner. And so invest in your health. And if you're confused about what to eat, what's the best diet for you, seek a doctor that is trained in integrative functional holistic medicine who has a better understanding of food. Also work with a dietitian. Unfortunately, a healthcare system is not able to fully reimburse patients for their visits to their dietitians.
Mhm.
But again, if you're really confused and you want to get healthier, dietitians are the expert in this. Health coaches have an important role as well. And last but not least, invest in a good knife. Um, a good knife is sort of the first thing we get in culinary school, and I think it's a really important thing to purchase so that you can buy one knife for a long time. And so that's sort of my final comments. But I always close all my discussions with my prescription. May I do that?
Yeah.
Okay. As I said before, stay fresh, right? And fresh is the acronym for food, relaxation, exercise, sleep, and happiness. And when it comes to food, eat more plants. You need to find at least 10 minutes a day to relax. You need to move for at least 30 minutes a day, sleep to 7 to 8 hours a night. And when it comes to happiness, other people matter. Surround yourself with people that support and love you. And if you want to learn more about us, check out our website. And if you are not in New York and you want to learn more, we have an online school that teaches all of these principles of healthy living and eating called Fresh Menu.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Graham. I really appreciate it, and it was great learning more about the work that you do and more about Fresh Med. That was actually a question as far as the last question was just talking more about the classes that you offer, but we can always find more on the website. And as far as, something fun that you're doing for Hispanic Heritage Month, or is there anything something that you're offering on your website for Hispanic Heritage Month?
Oh boy, you know what? I don't know. I have a lot of travel this month, and so
Mm-hmm.
once I sort of perfect this pupusa recipe, I will share it on my socials. I promise. But listen, also follow you guys. You guys are doing amazing work, sort of celebrating the importance of heritage diets, and so I don't want it all about me. It's all about what you guys do, and collaboratively, I think we go a lot farther.
Absolutely. We'll definitely tag you in our captions and, for Fresh Med so people can learn more about the work that you and your wife do. Thank you so much for your time and
Thank
thanks
you.
everyone for joining. This will
Bye.
be saved on our website or YouTube. So happy Hispanic Heritage Month. Take care,
Bye,
everyone.
everyone.
Bye.
Take care.